Hey, what's up guys, TechTine here, and we are nearing the end of the year. 2024 is right around the corner, and I've reviewed a lot of phones in the past year, so here are my top picks. So this is going to be the 2023 Smartphone Awards Budget Edition. Let's get rolling. So a lot of great budget phones came out of this year. I've reviewed a lot of them as well, but here's my first pick, and this goes to the kind of the best value in phones, and this first pick is under 200 bucks, and that is the Samsung Galaxy A14 5. And believe it or not, this is the most popular phone in the world right now. So this is under 200 bucks. A lot of people really love the experience of this phone because let me tell you something, this brings in the basic needs and then some, right? The best thing about this phone is really its display. So it has 90 Hz LCD display that is 1080p, sharp, vivid, does everything that you would expect. And the design also is not that bad. Now, obviously, I complain a little bit about the design just because of durability issues, but overall though, as a package, my biggest asset when it comes to this phone is its battery life and its display. So it gives you a really nice 1080p panel that is IPS LCD and it's top quality IPS panel. So shout out to Samsung for giving us a quality display and not really something that is cheap or not reliable. As far as the camera goes, you do get a 50 megapixel and a 2 megapixel macro as well as a 2 megapixel kind of depth sensor. And the camera on this phone is, I would say, a little bit above basic, so it does what you would want and then some. So it takes some decent pictures under good lighting conditions. It's not going to be really top quality or gonna, break crazy numbers, but it's definitely one of those things that it will get the job done when it comes to picture quality. Now, I can't really say that about the video quality. So this phone is capable of recording 1080p, but the video quality looks kind of embarrassing almost, so not really that good. It tends to kind of overexpose and underexpose in some situations. The colors, the sharpness, the details, just not all of that. But overall though, as a package, I think this deserves the best value award. Now, the runner-up in this category is none other than the Motorola Moto G Play. So this phone here brings in even more value, but I feel like it lacks a lot of things. It lacks just the performance aspect, it lacks the display, it lacks the 5G connectivity. However, this is a phone that you can get right now, brand new, unlocked, for around 100 bucks, which, okay, I know why some people will be tempted to call this the best value, but it really is not. I would pay an extra $100 and get a more premium options such as 5G, a better camera experience, and a better display. But this phone is one of those phones that will meet your basic needs. All right, and that would be it. It would not go above and beyond the basic needs. So it has a kind of a decent display. It's not gonna be a 90 hertz or 120 hertz display, but it's a display that will get the job done. Again, it will meet the basic needs. This phone also lacks kind of the 5G connectivity, so you're only limited to LTE as of right now. And honestly, it also lacks kind of the storage. So the basic storage that you can get on this phone is 32 gigabytes. However, though, as a whole package, again, this will be a good runner-up option and it will meet your basic needs. All right, so with that being said, the next category that I'm going to be looking into right now would be the underrated category. And that award belongs to none other than the Samsung Galaxy A23. So let's talk a little bit about this phone. So the Samsung Galaxy A23, you can think of it as kind of the better version of the Galaxy A14 5G. Now, its biggest downside, and I feel like that's why it kind of went under the radar, is its price point. So the A23 was priced at $329 compared to the $199 that the A14 had. And listen, the A23 overall though still is a fantastic phone. It's just the price point did not meet what this phone would provide, right? Don't get me wrong, this phone does have a really nice display. It's still an IPS panel. It's very similar to the A14's display. And as far as the display quality, your image quality, watching videos, browsing the web, it was good. The specs are actually better than the A14 by a little bit. So it had the Snapdragon 695 5G, 4 gigabytes of RAM, standard 64 gigabyte of storage, as well as a 5000 milliamp hour battery. When it came to the benchmark, it did score higher than the A14, and it did also have or share a very similar design point to the Galaxy A53 from last year. So with that being said, this was kind of an underrated phone. The price point, I feel like it kind of killed the popularity of this phone. Now the runner-up in this category would be the OnePlus Nord N30 5G. What OnePlus decided to do is that they decided to slap a kind of 100 megapixel camera within this phone. But let's talk a little bit about the design real quick. So the design here had this kind of shiny, kind of chrome finish to it, which was a fingerprint magnet, so a case was definitely highly recommended on this phone. And all the videos about these phones will be linked in the description if you want to get kind of in a more detail look at these devices. But basically the flex behind this phone was mainly the 100 megapixel sensor that OnePlus decided to put with this phone. However, the problem with that was this: the 100 megapixel sounds nice and all, but it just didn't meet expectations. The image quality was still slightly under average, so I don't know what's up with that. However, though, as a phone, it still was a decent phone overall. It just didn't meet kind of expectations, right? I mean, I feel like if I'm OnePlus, I wouldn't just slap 100 megapixel on a phone that is not going to be really that good at taking pictures. So that's just my opinion, and that's why I feel like this phone under the radar. And I feel like if they didn't really advertise that 100 megapixel camera and just made the price point of this phone a little bit more appropriate, it would have made more headlines. But let me know what you think about this device in the comments below. So my next category is very simple, which is the best features, and that will go to none other than the Motorola Moto G Stylus 5G. Now the reason I gave this award to this phone is just because of the fact that this is one of those phones that will give you kind of a classic stylus, and you don't really see that a lot in phones nowadays. Yeah, maybe you'll see it in like the S23 Ultras, but mainly the addition of a stylus in a budget phone seems to be kind of a nostalgic move from Motorola, and they still keep it going to this day. And this is kind of the Smartphone Awards budget edition, so in my opinion this phone does have the best features because the stylus itself gives you a lot of things to do, like take GIF videos, write notes. You can even search in the Google search bar using the stylus while just writing instead of typing, so you get a lot more options with the addition of stylus. And Motorola in general, their software gives you a lot of gestures, make the experience a little bit better. So you can obviously double check to turn on the camera, you can use the stylus to write down or draw on your photos, and there's just a lot of things that you could do with this phone that you cannot do with some of the phones that were on the list. Now mind you, some of these features are found in pretty much all of Motorola phones, but the stylus is exclusive to the Moto G Stylus 5G. And I also want to add that this phone also has kind of complete experience just because it does have a nice display, a nice large display. The camera system on here is fine, it's okay. I did a full camera review, I'll leave it in the description. And yeah, overall though, it's kind of a complete phone with the addition of a stylus and a couple of other features that make it or give it kind of a unique experience in my opinion. Alright, so let's move on to the next category, and that would be the best design category. And of course I have to give this to the Motorola Moto Razr, and this is kind of their budget edition of the Moto Razr, so it does provide you with a lot of cool things, such as obviously the flip screen, and of course you get a secondary display in here. And one of the biggest things that I liked about this phone is its price tag. Obviously right now a lot of carriers are being very competitive on who can sell more of this phone, so you can find it with a carrier for around $199, which in my opinion is a killer deal. But if you want it unlocked, the MSRP is around $599. I've seen it go for $499, so pricing may change, but kind of the stable is between $500 and $600 if you want it unlocked. And you do get all the features that you would get in a flip device, right? And the reason I say that this is the kind of best design is because, one, a lot of the other phones that I've reviewed on this channel in this past year, whether they're coming from Samsung, Motorola, OnePlus, or other brands, they kind of have this similar, I would say, similar classic design that we've seen in a lot of phones, right? But the Motorola Moto Razr would say a new category in budget smartphones, right? Because the flip have always been exclusive to the higher end of the demographics. But Motorola said, nah, we're not doing that no more. Let's just bring it down a notch and bring the same features that you would see in a flip. For example, it does have kind of a very durable hinge that I do have to give Motorola Motorola props for. The crease is nothing too crazy, so it's very similar to the ones that you see in the more expensive phones like the Samsung Z Flip or even their flagship Moto Razr. But in addition to all of that, you get kind of 165 hertz refresh rate display, which is fantastic, and the screen on here is nice. It's good to look at. However, it does have all the drawbacks that a flip device have. Easily scratchable, very fragile, so there are a lot of things that are not positive about the flip lineups, but that's just found in pretty much a lot of these, in whether you get the $1,000 flip device or you get this kind of budget-friendly flip device. The camera on here is okay. I would say it's fine. It's gonna do its job, but it's not gonna impress anybody. And this phone is not meant to impress you with its pictures. It's meant to impress you with its design. So that's why this phone, I believe, it deserves the kind of the best design award out of all the phones that I reviewed this year. So the next award is the People's Choice Award, and that will go to none other than the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G. This has been the most popular phone that I've reviewed on this channel, and I see why. So it does bring in some really nice feature. And if you actually watched MKBHD's video on the best smartphone awards, this was featured in one of them. So this was featured as the best budget phone, but I don't think that that's the best budget phone. I will save that for the next category. However, though, this is almost a complete device that you can get for around $479 MSRP. I did see it for lower at around $399, and I've even seen it with carriers for around $100. So you can definitely get a nice deal on it if that's something that you're looking for. And one of its greatest asset is not the design, but it does share a very similar design characteristic with the S23. So you can think of it as the A lineup is getting closer and closer to the S lineup of Samsung devices, which is really nice to see. But its biggest asset, in my opinion, is three things. One is the battery life. So it does have a bigger battery than the S23, believe it or not. So it does have a 5,000 milliamp hour battery capacity, and the battery life on here is fantastic. Standby is really good. I had no issue with this phone's battery life whatsoever. The second thing that I loved about this phone is its display. So it does have a 120 hertz refresh rate display, an AMOLED screen, and you know Samsung, they know how to do an AMOLED screen, so the display on here was fantastic. And the other thing that I liked about it is that you do get an in-display fingerprint sensor that is fairly fast and reliable. So that's also a thumbs up. Now, as far as the camera setup, it does have a triple camera, and you get a wide angle, a main sensor, and kind of a macro sensor. The basic things that you would need to know about the camera is this: it's a better camera choice than pretty much all the other phones that I mentioned on this list. So the camera will do its job properly. You can take some good pictures under good lighting conditions, and this phone does record 4K video, so that's thumbs up for that. And it does have optical image stabilization, so that's also an additional thumbs up. Yeah, so basically this is kind of your complete phone if you want to stay under $400, and that's the People's Choice. This was one of the most popular phones that I've reviewed this year, but I do want to hear your opinion in the comments below about the Galaxy A54 5G, because it's not all sunshine and roses. It does have kind of a heating issue that I can't say that it's major, but it's there. So that's also something that hopefully Samsung will fix in the next generation. Alright, so my next category will be my favorite phone of the year, and this is my opinion. This is the budget smartphone of the year, and that will go to the Samsung Galaxy S23 FE. And this is one of those phones that kind of hits all the pillars that you would want in a great smartphone. So it has you can say it has a basic design, which is cool, but it shares a lot of design characteristics between it, the A54 and the S23. So you can say also that it's a familiar design. Metal and glass is the main components of this phone, and it does have a really fantastic camera system. It does also support 8K video recording. I don't know how many people will take advantage of that, but it's a big flex, and it's there if you want to use it. And it also supports obviously 4K 30 or 60 frames per second, does have optical image stabilization. I did a lot of videos about this phone. I'll leave them all in the description below. And it also has some pretty impressive specs. It does have the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 processor. I know it's kind of an older processor, but it still beats out a lot of these budget processors that I've reviewed in the past. And also it does have ray tracing, which is not found in a lot of these other budget phones. So that's a first in my opinion, and the vapor chamber is there to help cool the phone. And you also get wireless charging, a decent battery, a fantastic display, and overall just I mean, I feel like it hits all the categories that you would want in a good smartphone. Obviously, this is an easy recommend in my opinion if you can get it on a good deal, and I've seen it go for around $399, believe it or not. So if you can find it at that price, you're getting yourself a killer deal in my opinion. The only complaint that I have, or I would say nitpick that I have, is believe it or not that the bezels on this phone are larger than the Galaxy A54's bezels. I don't know what's up with that, but that's just something that I wanted to mention and put out there. Overall though, this is my phone choice of the year. I think the fantastic display partnered with the great specs and a familiar design and a great camera system just makes this phone a whole and makes it worth your while.